Hey folks, how's it going? Mr. Mitchell here. In this video I'm going to go over a couple of worked examples covering units, prefixes and scientific notation. Now if you haven't already done so, check out my other video covering the theory on this topic, and that way you'll be able to apply what you learned there to this video. And if you want to get the most out of the video, I recommend pausing just before I show you the answers so that you can try the questions for yourselves. So let's get started. So just before we try these couple of worked examples, it's probably a good idea for you to have the table of prefixes open, because that's going to help you try these questions. So question 1 says, use scientific notation to convert the measurements to the units shown. So in part A we've got 4.5 petajoules to joules. Well, remember peta is times 10 to the power of 15, so this will simply become 4.5 times 10 to the 15 joules. Part B, 7 tera electron volts to electron volts. Remember tera is times 10 to the power of 12, so that's going to become 7 times 10 to the power of 12 electron volts. In part C we have 12 gigahertz to hertz. Remember giga is times 10 to the power of 9, so this becomes 12 times 10 to the power of 9 hertz. Part D, 4.7 megawatts to watts. Remember mega is times 10 to the power of 6, so this becomes 4.7 times 10 to the power of 6 watts. For part E, 46 kilometers to meters. So remember kilo is times 10 to the power of 3, so this becomes simply 46 times 10 to the power of 3 meters. Part F, 20 centimeters to meters. So remember centi is times 10 to the power of minus 2, so this becomes 20 times 10 to the minus 2 meters. Part G, 25 milliamps to amps. So remember milli is times 10 to the power of minus 3, so we're into the negative powers now, so this gives us 25 times 10 to the minus 3 amps. Part H, 300 microseconds to seconds. Remember micro is times 10 to the minus 6, so this becomes 300 times 10 to the minus 6 seconds. Part I, 630 nanometers to meters. So remember nano is times 10 to the minus 9, so this becomes 630 times 10 to the minus 9 meters. Part J, 2200 picofarads to farads. So remember pico is times 10 to the minus 12, so this becomes 2200 times 10 to the minus 12 farads. And lastly, part K, 10 femtometers to meters. So femto, remember, is times 10 to the minus 15, which is one of our new prefixes, so this becomes 10 times 10 to the minus 15 meters. Question 2 now says to use scientific notation to convert the measurements to the units shown. So this time we're converting back from full numbers into prefixes. You wouldn't actually have to do this in a final answer, you can just state final answers without prefixes, but it's good practice to get you familiar with the different prefixes. So in part A, 6 times 10 to the 15 meters to petameters. Well, remember peta is times 10 to the power of 15, so this simply just becomes 6 petameters. Part B says 14 times 10 to the 12 electron volts to tera electron volts. Well, remember tera is the times 10 to the 12, so this simply becomes 14 tera electron volts. Part C, 2.3 times 10 to the 7 watts to gigawatts. Well, remember giga is times 10 to the power of 9, so if we want this to be in the form of times 10 to the 9, then we need to move our decimal place 2 places to the left, and we end up with 0.023 gigawatts. Part D, 5.6 times 10 to the 8 hertz to megahertz. Remember mega is times 10 to the 6, so if I want this to become times 10 to the 6 so that I can replace it with the m, then I need to move my decimal point 2 places to the right, and this becomes 560 megahertz. Part E, 14 times 10 to the 3 meters to kilometers. So remember kilometers is times 10 to the 3, so this simply becomes 14 kilometers. Part F, 0.09 meters to centimeters. Remember centi is times 10 to the minus 2, so this becomes 9 centimeters. Part G, 4.6 times 10 to the minus 3 volts to millivolts. So remember milli is times 10 to the minus 3, so we just replace this with the small m, so we get 4.6 millivolts. Part H, 2.5 times 10 to the minus 5 amps to microamps. Remember micro is times 10 to the minus 6, so if we want this in the form of times 10 to the minus 6, then we need to move our decimal point 1 place to the right, and we get 25 microamps. Part I, 4.50 times 10 to the minus 7 meters to nanometers. Remember nano is times 10 to the minus 9, so if I want this in the form of minus 9, I need to move my decimal point 2 places to the right, and I get 450 nanometers. Part J, 4.70 times 10 to the minus 9 farads to picofarads. So remember pico is times 10 to the minus 12, so we need to move this decimal point 3 places to the right, and we get 4,700 picofarads. And lastly, part K, 12 times 10 to the minus 15 meters to femtometers. Remember femto is times 10 to the minus 15, so this simply becomes 12 femtometers. That's all for this video guys, I hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.